Well, hello world, it's Terry Marshall again, coming to you live from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, which is right down in the southwest corner of Canada. And if you look very carefully, you'll see that in my hand I am holding what has been described by one Canadian Prime Minister as a Canadian national treasure. Or, to be precise, half of that national treasure, because it's attached to this lovely lady here, who is Leona Boyd.
Nice to be with you, Terry.
Well, it's nice to have you here, and welcome back to Vancouver.
Thank you so much.
I was going to introduce you as the famous painter, Leona Boyd. Oh. And the reason for that was reading your book, which I have a copy of. We'll wave it at the camera in a minute. Realizing that both your parents were artists, and then having seen the sort of talent you're now displaying on your own website at www.leonaboyd.com, you could so easily have chosen art as your principal career, I would have thought.
Yes, there's no musicians in my family at all, so everybody was very artistic. But
I'm going to get Chris to film those later on, and we'll do those as inserts. There are a couple of examples of Leona's paintings, so, and if you want to see the rest of some of them works, go and take a look at the website. Let's go back to the beginning. In your book, which is called In My Own Key, I got the impression that you were pretty rebellious as a school kid.
But I've been an adventurer all my life. Yeah. I mean, I love to have different life experiences, and this guitar, this wonderful instrument, has enabled me to really see the world. It's been my passport to adventure, in a sense.
How much was the spur telling you couldn't do something when you were a young emerging artist to get you to go out and do it? I mean, a lot of people probably said to you couldn't be a classical guitarist because women weren't classical guitarists.
That's right.
Was that one of the spurs?
No, really, I just did it quietly. I wasn't really, I don't see myself much as a rebellious type then. I was just, you know, from a very creative, sort of artistic family, so wanted to do what I loved, and I fell in love with the guitar when I was 13. I used to want to do things individually, like I would transcribe pieces and do them with my own fingerings. It got me into trouble with Segovia a few times, or different little guitar things. But I was actually really attracted to writing, so I'm delighted that I got finally to write my autobiography, because it was a dilemma whether I do music or English literature.
One of the things that hit me very forcibly in reading that biography was, I think, something which started out when you were a child, which was your mother always used to give you 10 words to learn every day. Yeah. And some of the words you chose there were really, I saw almost a couple of cases, almost went to the dictionary, but which was nice. I mean, it was great.
Yeah. No, my parents were teachers.
Yes.
So.
When I was growing up, we were so poor that I only got one Christian name, but you have got 3, I think, and there's a story behind every one of them. Originally, I think you were going to be called Leona, spelled L-E-O-N-A. 3 of them, and each one has a story attached to it. You picked up already, no, don't mean this lady, she picked up off my notes that I'd misspelled her name once, which is correct, because when you were originally christened, I think they were going to call you Leona with an E, were they not?
Which means a lioness.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the story of the first name.
Because my grandmother is Spanish, she said, you know, you can't call it, so you have to change the spelling, which my parents did, and it's one of my great honors that children now, I meet other Leonas, they say, oh, I was named after you. So great tribute.
And the second name, Maria.
Because my father's from Spain.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the last name, which I thought was the most charming addition, was Caroline, and the story behind how it came.
Oh, that was just totally last minute. My mother happened to get a suggestion on the way to register the name. Yeah.
I thought that was quite charming. Your book, which, let's hold it up so people can see what we're talking about. It's a book called In My Own Key. It's Leona's autobiography. A very interesting picture, I thought, emerged of you. I mean, on the one hand, there's the young woman who has been courted by billionaires, who has been the companion of prime ministers, who has sort of been piloted by a prince, and who actually spent the weekend romping on the floor with the Queen's corgis. And on the other hand, there's this young woman who is at her happiest, it seems, when she's walking on the beach barefoot, wearing jeans and an old sweater. Is that fair?
Well,
that's
true. That's very true. Yeah. I like the contrast in life. I wouldn't want to be all the time sitting on the beach. Well, I am actually a bit of a recluse sometimes. People laugh and oh yeah, you're like hobnobbing with royal family and everything. But I think that's what gives the richness to life, the variety of different experiences. And that's what I've loved in my guitar, that I'm not always doing the same type of things. I keep it fresh. I keep reinventing myself every few years. You know, I'm now traveling with a band. I've played lots of times with symphony orchestras, and then solo, and then I do, tonight I'm going to do a little bit of the classical rap where I recite poetry and
Really?
speak. So
You've
I haven't
tried-
stayed exactly on the you know, following the footsteps of other guitarists.
You've come very close to singing a couple of times, haven't you? In fact, on one track, I think you did sing with Roger Whittaker, did
Yes,
you not?
right.
Yes.
Right, I was thrown out of a choir in England when I was a kid, told I couldn't sing.
Yeah.
But
Interesting thing, and maybe I'm playing amateur psychologist here, and I'm going to get myself into trouble, but I got this, I looked at the list of names of all the people that you had spent time with, and I thought, first of all, oh, you know, she's just name dropping, but you were kind enough to leave a lot of clues. And it dawned on me that what in fact we were getting was this sense of awe that as a young woman who played the classical guitar, you couldn't believe that you were getting to spend time with and be accepted by all these icons.
well, you know, I don't know. I guess I do move in some exotic circles, but I meet a lot of, well, you mean famous people,
Yes.
actors or whatever. I mean, yes, I continually, I mean, I live in Los Angeles, so I do know a lot of people, but then when I discovered that people love my music, that's extra rewarding. But why I wrote the book, I mean, I didn't want to just like name drop or show off, this is my life. I wanted to share it with my fans because my whole career would not be, wouldn't be anything without the fans, particularly here in Canada, because this is where my career's really had its base. And I mean, I just came from playing Salt Spring Island. We had 2 sold-out shows the other day. Small, like 250-seat theater, but great energy, wonderful, loyal fans that have followed my classical moves. When I did a country record with Chet Atkins, they accepted that. When I played with the band, the Persona. And in a way, I wanted to share some of the behind-the-scenes things with my life, because people read a little interview in a magazine and it just sort of sketches on the surface.
Well, they came across, and as I said, I got the sense somewhere along the line that you were sort of awed by the fact this was actually happening to you.
Yeah, sometimes. That's true. I pinch myself. Am I really sitting here playing with the Queen's Corky Dogs, or is Fidel Castro really sitting here puffing cigar into my eyes? Yeah.
So, okay then, complete the sentence if you will. I finally accepted the fact that I was successful when?
Oh, I still don't accept it.
That's
I'm still
what
on
I thought
nervous
you were
wreck
going to say.
thinking, oh my God, I still haven't practiced this piece for tonight's no.
Well,
No.
let's talk just a little bit about the guitar itself. I mean, you were born exactly 3 months before my wife, so she assures me you can't possibly be more than 29.
Oh, right, yeah.
But when you were a teenager and learning to play the guitar, I mean, the guitar as a choice of instrument itself might not have been so much of a surprise, but this was a day when folk singers were at their
Well,
their
I couldn't
height.
sing, so
Yeah,
there you
exactly.
go. That was perfect.
Was it just pure serendipitous that your first teacher happened to be a classical guitarist, or was that
No.
the definite decision?
No, we had a guitar in the family because it was brought over from Spain as a souvenir of my grandparents and a trip we took. And then, I mean, I'm a romantic. I always have been. I don't know why. I mean, I seem to be the only one in the family that has this sense. Maybe it's my Spanish heritage or whatever. But something appealed to me right away about the guitar. The sensitivity of the nylon strings, the sounds, just the shape of it, the physical act of playing it. I just, you know, it just was right. It was meant for me. In my new album, the Cino Latino album, I don't know whether you've got a chance to see it yet. I write a poem. It's called O Guitarra. I did it in Spanish and English. I'm actually very proud because this whole, it's like a 10-page booklet that's all in Spanish and English. And I have a Latin singer, too, that sings. But to actually write in another language, because these days I'm really so sort of rediscovering my passion for the Latin culture and for Spanish, living in Los Angeles, and you know, having lived that 1 year in Mexico. So this album is very Latin in many ways.
I wonder how many people recognize or know what an incredible influence Gordon Lightfoot had on your developing career.
He started my career. I got off track there. I just wanted to say why I mentioned the O Guitarra. It's like a love poem about the guitar. That's, I hope you enjoy that poem.
Oh, I'm sure I will.
Gordon Lightfoot, he introduced me to like suddenly big audiences, you know, arenas were playing to 20,000 people sometimes. And it was pretty brave on his part to take a classical guitarist. But I mean, it was easy. It was not like taking a whole band. It was simple, and the audiences seemed to respond really well. I'm very grateful. He was just fantastic. It gave me a boost, and in turn, I'm trying to help Pavlo, who's just at the beginning of his career. It's nice to introduce him to my audiences across the country.
If you had a little chat with him earlier on, what a charming man.
Yeah, he is.
I was thinking about your technique of playing classical guitar. As a non-musician, I know that the guitar is probably the chameleon of instruments. It can take on different colors in different media. But what I wonder is, As a classical guitarist, how much would you have in common with maybe an outstanding jazz guitarist like Lenny Breau? I mean, do you actually share a common musical language? Or
Sure. I mean, I don't play jazz, and he didn't play classical, but we met on harmonics. He had the most amazing harmonic technique of any guitarist, and he, in fact, I taught him also some right finger trills, and we just, you know, traded little trade secrets, little guitar techniques. But just on a human level, he had such a great sense of humor. It's such a tragic loss.
Yes,
that guy
absolutely.
was a genius. I mean, very, very unique in the guitar world.
And sadly, not necessarily a household name.
No, he
Which
never
is
really hit
really
the
a pity.
big time.
You are becoming almost as well known now as a composer as you are as a guitarist. How does that creative process work for you? Can you do it as a sort of like an intellectual musical exercise where you sit down and say, today I'm going to compose, or can you only do it in the wake of some sort of inspiring incident, or
You
is
know,
it
I don't really know
both?
the answer to that question because usually I'm not under any pressure. It just comes to me. I mean, I just wrote a Christmas song 2 days ago on the island. But I sat down and said, I want to write a really catchy Christmas song for children to sing. So sometimes a melody will just come to me. Sometimes I'll struggle and I won't be happy with it. Other times it comes effortlessly. I was listening to a Spanish tour. They said you just grab the melodies out of the air. Well, maybe they're out there just waiting to be grabbed. Sometimes I struggle with like chord progressions, and I don't write for orchestra, but I've done a couple of concertos where I've written the guitar part and someone else has done the orchestrations. Richard Fortin is my producer.
You touched on something there, which is a question I was going to ask you a couple down the road, but let's ask it now, because anybody listening to Leona Boy playing the guitar would say there can't be anything musically that she can't do like that. But what do you still have to learn?
Oh, there's endless things to learn. I'm always learning new things and new pieces, and
But technically...
and now, I mean, with the band, this is a whole new thing. We've got like metal pickups on my guitar, and having to hear myself over all the band, that's quite a challenge, you know.
Shades of persona.
That's right.
Yes.
I swore I'd never tour with the band again, and here we are, and we've
yeah.
been like getting standing ovations every night. The audience really seems to enjoy the variety, the contrast. I mean, classical guitar has always been my love, but I enjoy doing something different every few years.
If you were going to offer just one piece of advice to aspiring guitarists, all those people sitting out there watching what you do, could you wrap it up in sort of like one succinct sentence as to what they should be doing?
Well, just stick with it. You know, it's a very, very difficult instrument. It's not the beauty of the guitar. You can play a few chords very simply, but to learn it in the classical style, you know, at the concert level, it takes a lifetime. But you can get such happiness, such joy from doing simple little pieces. And you know, if somebody wants to do it as a career, I would suggest don't just follow the advice and try and mold yourself totally on somebody else. Be a bit original. Do things a bit differently. You know, write your own things if possible. I was never encouraged to write at all. This is only something in later years that I've done. But at the university, you know, that wasn't my training to be a composer. But why not? Why shouldn't people write their own music? But the most thing is just to love it and be happy giving it and sharing it with as many people as possible. Get out and play, you know, even if you don't get paid anything. I used to do a lot of little benefit concerts or playing at the local
We
church.
know all
or
about
wherever.
doing something you're not getting paid for it. I don't want to bring this interview down, but over the last few months you've lost a couple of fairly close friends, and I think of Pierre Trudeau and Chet Atkins. You are probably uniquely qualified to answer the question, what do you think their legacy is going to be down the years? When we look back at them from your perspective, what do you think we're going to remember about those two particularly?
Well, Pierre was a giant in Canadian history. He changed the country forever. I think he'll be remembered just for his unique vision of Canada. And Chet Atkins, of course, for his music. He was an absolute guitar addict, and he just lived for his guitar. And it was very sad in the last year because he couldn't play his guitar. He'd had a stroke. He used to call me Liona because his wife was Leona with an E. So he'd say, Liona, you know, life isn't worth living if you can't play the guitar. So I thought, oh my God, I hope that never happens to me, that I can't play, because it gives me such pleasure. In a way, it's kind of a spiritual retreat for me too when I play my guitar. It adds a lot to my life.
Well, just so that you know, we were mindful of doing a little business whilst you were with us, and I wanted to come to this, which is your latest release. I don't know whether Chris can pick up on that. It's called Cino Latino, or Latin
yes.
Journey.
Latin
I don't
Journey.
speak Spanish, so I
No,
leave
you
it
did
up
very
to you.
well. There's so many different guests on it.
What was the inspiration for this?
I played on Strunz and Farrar's record. They're a fantastic Latin jazz guitarist. And I was their special guest. And then they said, Leona, if you ever do a Latin record, we'll play on yours. So I thought, well, that'd be fantastic. And so I asked different friends. I asked Jesse Cook, he's from Canada. Steve Morris, fantastic guitarist. Al Di Meola, who's like a legend in his own right. And I got all these different guitarists. Johannes Lindstedt, of course, Pavlo wrote me a piece. And in a way, it's my tribute to these guitarists. They play with a pick, they play a billion notes to a minute. They don't play in the classical style. And it's their tribute to me, so it's just an exciting project to be sharing music with a lot of wonderfully talented musicians, and to have written some of the pieces, that's very rewarding. And I love now being able to play it on the stage.
And available at a record store near you,
Yes.
folks.
Yeah.
Not so much a question, but a statement, really. I want to take issue with the sobriquet you've been travelling under for a good number of years now, which is the First Lady of the Guitar. And I'll tell you why I say that. In prepping for this interview, I talked to a lot of people, and there wasn't one person who didn't know who Leona Boyd was and what she did. But there wasn't one person either who could name another classical woman guitarist. And to be first in a group of one, I consider to be quite demeaning.
Well, there are some others.
So here we are. I'm
No,
moving
there are
here
others.
and now that we scrap that, and from now on we call you the first person of the guitar.
Oh, well.
And if you won't
thank
accept
you,
that, then maybe one of the top
That's
three
very kind.
guitarists alive.
Thank
Leona,
you.
I knew it would be a pleasure. It has been. Thank you very much
Thank you,
indeed
Terry.
for sitting down and talking
Great.
with us.
Thank
Have
you
a
so much.
great concert tonight.
I will.